I wouldn't have thought I got mental health issues. You know, to me, I was going through them things because I had issues at work.
By and large, I'm quite a laid-back person, but I think those around me had noticed some changes in me.
I was quite insistent that no one found out about the diagnosis at first. I swore my husband to secrecy.
It was the perfect storm. And so I think I'd got all of the properties of a meltdown, and it just needed that final push, and that was it.
My name's Islam, although everyone calls me Izzy. There was one specific occasion where I was literally, well, I felt at the time shouted at in front of about 60, 70 people in the middle of a control room. And this manager turned around and said, there is no one else, you've got to do these nights. I just had a kidney donated by my brother. I started thinking, am I going to go back on dialysis? Is my kidney going to fail? I'd hear whisperings around, well, so-and-so's a diabetic and they can do X, Y and Z, so why can't he? That was probably my lowest point. I've never felt so worthless in all my life. I felt as though you're burdening other people, and that is the worst feeling in the world. Got to a point where I was becoming really angry at home, shouting, being unhappy, being miserable. It was not fair on my family. I've got to do something. There was a colleague that had a bit of a breakdown at work, and he'd sort out counselling, and I just thought, well, I can always give it a try. What's worse that can happen? I sat there for ages and didn't really say anything, sort of twiddling my thumbs, not knowing what to say, so to speak. But then, you know, it got a bit teary and I got a bit upset, and it all just came out like a blur. It was almost like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't think you should underestimate the value of sharing and being able to talk to someone. By the time that had all happened and, you know, I'd had the counselling and finished my phase return, I was in an alright place. When I returned to work, I actively got involved in the trade unions. I started learning more around what your rights are within the workplace. I'm really proud because the organisation engaged with me, the Yorkshire Ambulance Service. I've listened, you know, and things have changed, and I've seen that. The organisation has devised and developed policy, but I've also been part of that policy making. The mood's totally different. I've started a new role, quite proud about some of the achievements that I've managed to achieve. It just makes you feel valued, and if you feel valued, then you belong.
I had a battering of jobs. They weren't particularly traumatic or tragic, or they were run of the mill, some of them, but some of the jobs sort of got in there. There's so many variables in our job. We don't know what time we're going to have break. We don't know when we can have a cup of tea, or a wee. We don't know what job we're going to get. We don't know whether we're going to do a dead baby, followed by a suicide, followed by a domestic abuse. A bad job for me might not affect the next man or woman. I could go to a job and think, that's sad, but let's move on. And my crewmate could be in bits in the back. If somebody's just lost a loved one, a dad from cancer, for example, and then you go to somebody in their last hours and they're dying of cancer, then that person is going to be straight back into the bereavement zone and in bits. It was chucking down, absolutely torrential. Category 1, middle of Birmingham city centre, and a young bloke, suited and booted, had walked up the 8 stories of the multi-storey car park. He was seen to lay on the ledge and just roll off. It was not long after we'd heard staff suicides, and I was on his chest, and a colleague who's been in for years was on the airway, and I just heard this colleague say, I can't take any more suicides. And that upset me because I knew how close I was. There was an oak tree. We go past it in regulation at 60 miles an hour. That oak tree is my oak tree, and it would have been in my little Fiesta, just accelerate, take the seatbelt off and just aim for it. And I actually went the wrong way home from work several times just so I didn't have to be tempted. I've been in counselling since March. The counsellor was saying, you need to perhaps not be at work, and I said, oh no, I need to be at work, and I kept denying it. I got onto the ambulance one day to go to work. I was in floods of tears. The officer on the ground was aware, and he said, "Man, I'm putting a third person on with you." And it turns out both the other people that I was working with were struggling as well. I had a welfare check, somebody rang me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't think I am." I felt like I'd be flat down on the tarmac if I hadn't had the support that was surrounding me. I'm really lucky. 9 sessions of counselling, and then the GP said, "Should we double up on the searchlings?" Within about 4-6 weeks of that, I was like, oh, there I am. Come on, give me some love. I no longer have that big black cloud that was sort of stuck above my head following me round in the doom and gloom. I recognise how far I've come.
I'd had several years of different stresses in my personal life. Myself and my wife had fertility problems. We had several cycles of IVF. One of my relatives suffered a traumatic injury. However, early in 2017, I had a patient who deteriorated very, very rapidly. It's one of the real fundamental things we're taught is that children can deteriorate quickly. My actions were appropriate, but it really did have a profound effect on me. I just couldn't avoid wondering if there was something that I missed or that I could have done differently. When I was with patients, I started to doubt myself and wonder if my treatment was correct. And then slowly that began to affect my sleep to the point where there were nights where I had no sleep whatsoever. My wife convinced me to go to the doctors. Graham, my manager, suggested that perhaps putting on the green uniform might be a real positive step. And I have to admit, I had my doubts. My direct line managers made it quite clear that if there was anything that I needed, I could go to them and I wouldn't be judged and I would be supported. So I had a phased return to work. There was a period towards the end of my first week and I just felt that I didn't fit in. And I genuinely had feelings of doubt as to whether I would actually return to an operational role. We had an upcoming visit from Care Quality Commission. I had started networking with other people throughout the trust to get the tasks completed. I was able to share ideas. I soon came to realise that perhaps I could achieve something. I returned to full duties. I still have days when my mood is low, but I now have strategies in place to help me deal with those times.
My name's Scott and I'm an emergency call handler. The first time I took a call for someone who had hanged themselves, and afterwards I had a question that I wanted to ask my manager, and she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Wait a minute, you just took your first hanging, are you okay?" Emergency ambulance, is the patient breathing? It normalises the fact that your mental health can and will be affected by the job, and it's okay to need a little bit of support with that. I was very concerned that people wouldn't take me seriously. If I had a strong emotional reaction, that people would assume it was my mental health. My medication really helps to keep me at a stable mood. However, talking about how I'm feeling and recognising when my mood is changing is often really helpful to kind of catch it before it happens. If I'm maybe not doing too great with my mental health, I can, for the very first time in any job, be honest about that with my employer. There have been occasions where I've taken my manager to one side and said, I'm not doing great today. The same way you may if you were coming down with a bug. And so even if I am having a bad day, I am more likely to still feel able to come into work. Since I've come to work for the ambulance service, so far I've been really lucky that I've not needed any time off for my mental health.
People, when they see the green uniform, think that we have all the answers, but we are ordinary people.
If there's one thing I've learned is if you're going through a difficult time, that there's people out there to talk to.
My peers, the ones that truly know me, at the end of your shift, they'd say, did you do that job today? Do you want to talk about it?
If there is a culture whereby people are more open about mental health and it's accepted and respected, then people know that they'll be accepted and respected as well.